Welcome and thank you for joining me for this quiet journey into the past. In this story, we will take a long, gentle walk through medieval Europe. There will be no rush. We will move slowly, pausing often, noticing details, and lingering on the small things that made up ordinary life. Perhaps as you listen, you will feel your eyes grow heavy. Perhaps the slow rhythm of the words will carry you into sleep. That is perfectly fine. The past will still be here when you wake. Episode 22. The Medieval Sea. Ships, Ports, and Journeys. The sea is never still, even when it lies flat as polished glass. It breathes, it whispers, it pulls and releases. Along the shore where land yields to water, life has always gathered. The medieval shoreline is a place of mingled scents, salt and seaweed, tar and smoke, fish both fresh and rotting in heaps. It is a place where gulls wheel and cry overhead, their voices sharp against the soft thunder of waves. To stand upon the beach is to stand at the world's edge, where safety of soil gives way to the restlessness of tide. Here the day begins early. Fishermen rise before dawn, lanterns swaying, boats rocking against moorings. The tide is watched as carefully as the sky. Children learn to read the sea not in books, but in foam and color green-gray before a storm, the sudden brightness when shoals move close, the slick calm that warns of fog. Along estuaries, mudflats gleam, slick and treacherous, yet full of clams and mussels. Women wade with baskets, skirts tied high, their laughter carrying across the flat expanse as they dig with hands and knives. Salt is gathered too, for salt is life. Without it, fish cannot be kept, meat cannot be stored. On sunny coasts, shallow pans are dug where seawater is left to dry, leaving crystals sharp and white. Men rake it into piles, and children help carry it home in baskets. In towns, salt is precious, weighed, measured, taxed, guarded. To live by the sea is to live also by salt, for it turns fleeting abundance into lasting provision. Shorelines are never empty. Driftwood washes up, sometimes useful beams from distant wrecks, sometimes only twisted roots bleached by sun. Nets dry on poles, their ropes stiff with brine. Boats lie pulled up on shingle, hulls tarred black, smelling of pitch. Fish scales glimmer in heaps like coins spilled from some careless hoard. Dogs nose among them, chased away by shouts. Children chase crabs between rocks, squealing when they nip, and women spread seaweed upon fields to sweeten soil. The sea gives not only fish, but fertilizer, not only food, but timber, not only peril, but plenty. Yet the sea is never tamed. Medieval folk feared it as much as they loved it. Tales are told of monsters in the deep, serpents longer than ships, whales that overturn boats, mermaids who sing men to their deaths. Sailors swear they have seen lights beneath the waves, or islands that vanish when approached. Priests bless boats before they launch, sprinkling holy water upon decks, asking saints to guard them. Chapels are built upon headlands, their bells ringing over surf to remind mariners that faith must ride with them. The shoreline is borderland not only between land and sea, but between safety and peril, faith and fear. At market days, the shoreline fills with busters. Fishermen carry baskets heavy with herring, cod, or eels, shouting prices, their hands slick with scales. Women bargain fiercely, trading bread, cheese, or wool for fish to salt. The air is thick with gull cries, human voices, the slap of fish against wooden stalls. Sailors fresh from voyages swagger through crowds, their boots crusted with salt, their clothes stiff with sea wind. Children stare wide-eyed at shells, coral, driftwood charms brought ashore. For inland folk who walk to the coast, the shoreline feels like another country altogether. Shorelines are also places of farewell. Families gather as boats push into surf, men waiting to shove them clear, women standing with shawls pulled tight against wind. Prayers are whispered, crosses made, last glances exchanged. The horizon swallows ships quickly. Soon only the white line of sail is left, then nothing but sky and water. Farewell may last a day, a month, a year, or forever. To live by the shore is to know longing, to measure love not only in closeness, but in waiting. And shorelines are places of return. When boats appear again, shouts ring out. Children run down shingle, dogs bark, women wave. Nets are heavy, barrels full, or sometimes empty, yet the men are back, and that is enough. Salt-stiff sails are lowered, hulls drag high, catches gutted, and smoke rises from huts as fish are hung and dried. At night the village glows with firelight, laughter, song, the sea itself humming beyond, as if joining in the welcome. At the edges of medieval maps, where land was drawn firm and seas sprawled blank, scribes sometimes wrote hic sunt dracones, here be dragons. But those who lived at shorelines knew better. They knew the sea was not only mystery, not only peril, but also bread, trade, story, and hope. The shoreline was not the end of the world. It was its beginning. The first craft to meet the sea are small. Before galleys, before cogs, before the tall ships of merchants and kings, there are fishing boats, humble vessels shaped more by need than by pride. They are as varied as the coasts that bear them. On rocky shores, narrow boats slip easily between jagged teeth of stone. In broad estuary, flat-bottomed crafts skim shallow waters where nets are drawn. In sheltered bays, round coracles float like half-shells, light enough to carry on a man's back. At dawn, when the sky is still pale and gulls wheel hungry, these boats slide into water. Fishermen know the tides, the winds, the temper of each current. They know where herring school in glittering clouds, where cod lie deep, where eels slither in dark mud. They know the cries of seabirds, how the birds circle when shoals rise, how the sea's surface shivers when fish turn below. Their wisdom isn't written in books, but carried in memory, in practice, in words muttered from father to son, from grandfather to child. The boats themselves smell of tar and fish, of damp nets and salt. Their hulls are patched and repatched, nails hammered in where planks split, seams caulked with moss and pitch. Oars are worn smooth by countless hands, blades feathered into water with quiet rhythm. Nets hang heavy, ropes coiled at the prow, small wooden floats tied along the mesh. A lantern may swing from the bow, its light trembling across ripples in the dark. Fishermen wear cloaks stiff with spray, caps pulled low, knives at their belts. To watch them at work is to see ritual and rhythm. Nets are cast wide, floating upon sea like spider webs. Hands grip ropes, voices call out, muscles strain. Slowly, carefully, nets are drawn, dripping, writhing with silver life. Fish spill onto deck, scales flashing in early sun, flopping and gasping. Children, when allowed aboard, leap to help, laughing as they dodge the thrash. Some boats carry lines with dozens of hooks. Fishermen bait them swiftly, dropping them into depths, waiting for the tug that signals a catch. Catch enough and joy fills the boat. Men laugh, slapping shoulders, shouting thanks to saints. A small wooden cross may be kissed, a prayer whispered to Mary or Nicholas, protector of sailors. Catch too little, and silence reigns, broken only by gulls crying overhead. The sea gives as it wills. Some days it is generous, some days cruel. Yet the boats always go out again, for hunger waits on land, and faith drives men back into waves. Fishing is it only for trade, but for survival. In Lent, when meat is forbidden, fish fills tables. In villages, dried herring hang in rows, cod is salted in barrels, eels are stewed, mussels boiled. Women clean fish upon boards, their knives flashing, scales scattering like coins. Children carry baskets heavy with the day's haul, their clothes damp with brine. The smell of fish clings to lanes, to huts, to markets. It is the smell of sustenance, sharp yet beloved. Each boat carries its own superstitions. Some will not sail on certain feast days, fearing storms. Some paint eyes upon the prow to see dangers before men do. Some tuck relics beneath planks or nail charms against demons of the deep. Words are chosen carefully. Some never say pig aboard a boat. Some never whistle lest they summon gales. Fishermen spit into the sea as offering, or cast the first fish back to ensure more will come. These small acts are as important as nets and oars, for they steady the heart in face of uncertainty. The dangers are always near. A sudden squall can overturn small craft, fog blinds eyes, leaving men lost within sight of their own shore. Waves rise without warning, swallowing boats no larger than a cart. Families wait on land, scanning horizon, listening for bells that do not ring. Some men never return, their names spoken in mass, their nets hanging silent upon cottage walls. Yet still the boats go out. Fear does not end hunger, nor love of the sea. In some places, women and children join the fishing, coracles light as baskets, carry one or two at most. Women row with short strokes, set lines for eels or trout, gather shellfish near reeds. Children mend nets, learn to coil ropes, steer when fathers tire. The sea is their schoolroom, stern and generous. By the tide they are grown, the rhythm of tide is written into their bones, the pull of oars into their arms. When the boats return, sails sagging, oars dipping slow, the shoreline stirs. Dogs bark, women wave, children shout. Nets are hauled onto beach, fish spread upon mats, scales shining in sun. Smoke rises from huts where some are smoked or dried. Salt is rubbed into flesh to keep it through winter. The day's labor ends not with landing, but with cleaning, gutting, preserving. Only when the last fish is hung or salted does rest come, the boats pulled high upon shingle, ready to sleep until dawn calls them again. Thus the fishing boat, small and unadorned, is lifeline of the shore. Without it, hunger gnaws, markets falter, families scatter. With it, life flows steady, though never certain. The sea remains master, yet men and women answer with courage, with skill, with humble craft that has carried generations. In their small boats lies the great story of the sea, that conquest, not discovery, but daily endurance, patient and brave. The rivers of the medieval world are our gentle decorations upon the land. They are roads of water, carrying food, timber, stone, people, and prayer from one place to another. Where land is rutted, muddy, broken by forest or hill, rivers offer a smoother way. Barges, broad and patient, float upon them, heavy with cargo, guided by men whose lives are written in current and tide. To live by a river is to live by a living highway, one that never stands still, one that both gives and takes. A barge, is it graceful like a fishing boat, or proud like a sea cog? It is a workhorse, flat-bottomed, wide, built to carry more weight than speed. Its timbers are thick, its nails hammered deep. The smell of tar clings to its seams, keeping water at bay. Oars are sometimes set upon its sides, long and heavy. Yet more often the barge drifts with current or is hauled by rope from the bank. Some are little more than rafts of logs lashed together, floated downstream until they are dismantled and sold as timber where they land. Others are carefully built craft, passed from father to son, as much a family's livelihood as a plough. Along the towpaths, bargemen walk, shoulders bent, ropes looped about their chests. Horses are sometimes used, plodding steadily, harness creaking, hooves thudding upon earth. The path is narrow, often muddy, lined with nettles and willows. Men call to one another, their voices carrying across water, guiding the barge around bends, warning of shallows. Children too help, barefoot, leaning their weight against rope, their laughter mingled with the splash of oars. The barge moves slow but steady. It does not rush, but it endures, carrying more than any cart upon land. The cargo is endless. Sacks of grain bound for markets, barrels of ale brewed in monastic cellars, millstones so heavy that oxen could never drag them far on land, baskets of wool from upland sheep, timber from forests felled in distant hills. Sometimes Eve's stone for cathedrals, quarried miles away, floats upon these barges, each block sweating with moisture, each bound for towers that rise beyond sight. To watch a barge pass is to glimpse the lifeblood of towns and monasteries carried upon the river's back. Bargemen themselves are a breed apart. Their hands are thick, their faces browned by sun, their clothes stiff with spray. They walk miles along towpaths, sleeping often upon boards of the barge itself. They eat bread and cheese by the water, wash in its flow, mend ropes by torchlight. Songs rise from them, deep rhythmic chants to keep pace as they haul. Some are coarse, some merry, some half prayers muttered into twilight. They know every bend, every snag, every mill race. To outsiders, rivers seem shifting and treacherous. To bargemen, they are maps written not in ink, but in water. The sounds of rivers fill their lives, the steady splash of poles pushing bottom, the slap of water against hull, the cry of waterfowl, the creak of rope over wood. Mills thunder upon banks, their great wheels turning with groan and splash, feeding flour to towns. Fords echo with hooves of horses and the calls of travelers. Bridges hum with footsteps above while barges slide beneath, shadows moving through arches like slow fish. Night deepens these sounds. Soft lap of water, the croak of frogs, the sigh of reeds stirred by breeze. Yet rivers are always kind. Floods rise without warning, sweeping barges into trees, drowning fields, dragging cottages down in mud. Ice locks barges in place, grinding against their hulls until planks crack. Sudden storms whip surface into whitecaps, tossing lean broad barges sideways. Bargemen curse, pray, and cling to ropes, their craft groaning as if alive. Sometimes bandits wait upon banks, arrows ready, demanding tolls in coin or cargo. Barges are not swift enough to flee, so bargains are struck, goods surrendered, curses muttered as the river flows on indifferent. Rivers carry not only goods but people. Pilgrims drift downstream in groups, singing hymns, their bundles piled beside them. Merchants ride with their wares, bargaining even upon the deck. Nobles sometimes travel by barge, their seats cushioned, their servants shading them with cloth. Monks cross from abbey to priory, their habits flapping in wind, their chants echoing strangely upon water. Even the dead may travel by barge, coffins borne solemnly downstream, accompanied by bells tolling from village to village as they pass. Every river has its shrines, small chapels stand upon banks where bargemen pause to light candles. Crosses rise from fords, carved from stone, reminders of those drowned. Villagers bless the water on feast days, throwing herbs and flowers upon its surface. Children are christened at its edge, their cries mingling with gulls and geese. The river is both friend and foe, provider and taker, holy and dangerous. To live beside it is to live in constant respect, never forgetting its strength. Markets cluster where barges unload. Town Quays, buses with voices, barrels rolled down planks, sacks hefted upon backs, coins clinking into purses. Dockside taverns smell of ale and fried fish, filled with bargemen boasting of miles covered. Women sell bread to hungry crews, children beg scraps, smiths hammer nails for repairs. Above all, cranes creak, ropes strain, goods shift. The river brings life, and the town hums with it. Without barges, markets starve. With them, wealth flows as surely as water. At dusk, barges are moored, ropes tied to posts, lanterns lit upon decks. Bargemen sit upon boards, eating bread and onion, watching the current slide past. Some sleep beneath rough blankets, rocked by the water's movement. Others wander into towns, seeking warmth, music, company. The river murmurs endlessly, a lullaby harsh yet steady. In morning, ropes are untied, poles set, ropes tightened across shoulders, and the slow march begins again. The barge lives in rhythm as old as tide. To see a barge upon river, is it to see splendor but endurance? Its beauty, is it in speed or grace, but in patience? It carries not the dreams of conquest, but the quiet necessities of life. Grain, timber, wool, stone, all flow by its plodding pace. The medieval river is its background but lifeline, and barges are its humble servants. They remind us that strength lies not always in swiftness, nor greatness in grandeur, but in steady, faithful labor. Where river meets sea, or where cliffs bend to bays, there lie the coastal villages, half turned to land, half turned to water, living always with the sound of waves. To walk their lanes is to smell salt in every breath, to see nets hanging across doorways, to hear gulls crying above thatch and tile. These villages are modest, yet their life is rich with rhythm, fish drawn, boats mended, salt gathered, storms endured. Their people are hardened by wind, browned by sun, yet their laughter carries far, bright against the roar of surf. The cottages lean low, their roofs thatched thick against sea gales, their walls whitewashed with lime, sometimes streaked with tar to keep damp at bay. Nets hang drying upon poles outside, patched and knotted by women whose fingers move as swiftly as any weaver's. Oars rest against walls, tar buckets sit by doors, ropes coil like snakes upon thresholds. Inside, rooms smell of smoke and fish, hearths glow with peat or driftwood, floors are beaten earth worn smooth by boots. Each cottage is both home and workshop, its walls sheltering not only family, but the tools of their survival. Children are never far from the shore. They grow up chasing crabs in rock pools, collecting shells, daring one another into cold waves. By the tide they can walk steady, they can untangle nets, patch holes, coil ropes. Boys learn to row coracles or haul in small lines. Girls carry baskets heavy with mussels or limpets gathered from rocks. Childhood is short here, for hunger waits always, but it is full of laughter nonetheless, their games mingling with labor as naturally as tide with shore. The markets of coastal villages are small but lively. Wooden stalls grown with fish, silver herring, red mullet, flat flounder, wriggling eels. Salted cod hangs stiff in rows. Barrels of pickled herring stand ready for trade. Women shout prices, children dart between legs, dogs nose greedily at scraps. Inland farmers come to swap grain or cheese for fish. Merchants pause on journeys, bargaining for bulk loads to carry to towns. The market smells strong, fish, smoke, salt, sweat. But to those who live here, it is the smell of life itself. Salt is wealth. Along the coast, shallow pans lie in rows, their edges rimmed with wood. Seawater is poured in and left to the sun, slowly shrinking to crystals white and sharp. Men rake it into piles, their skin burned dark by glare, their lips cracked by dryness. Salt is carried inland in baskets, guarded as carefully as coin. Without it, fish would spoil. With it, villages thrive, for their catch to feed even those who live far from sea. Salt makes the ocean portable, carrying its gift deep into land. The seasons mark life sharply here. In summer, seas are generous, nets heavy, markets crowded. Sunlight warms cottages, fish dry easily upon racks. Laughter fills evenings as songs are sung by the shore. In winter, storms rage, boats drag upon anchors, thatch is torn by wind. Men go out less often, and when they do, wives stand long upon the shore, praying until they return. Winter nights are long, filled with the sound of surf battering rocks, and families huddle close, telling stories to drown the sea's roar. Storms are feared above all. Clouds gather dark, wind rises shrill, waves crash white and furious. Boats are dragged up shingle, nets abandoned, shutters barred. The sea turns wild, battering walls, tearing posts, flooding lanes. Sometimes boats are lost, dashed upon rocks before eyes of helpless families. Sometimes whole cottages are swallowed by waves, leaving only splintered beams and sand. Yet when storms pass, villages gather, mend, rebuild. The sea may take, but it also gives, and they will not leave it. Coastal villages are places of superstition and faith. Charms of shells hang by doors, crosses are carved into beams, small shrines stand upon headlands. Fishermen cross themselves before launch. Wives light candles to saints as boats push into surf. Bells ring to warn of fog, their sound muffled and eerie across water. Stories are told of drowned souls walking at night, their voices carried on the wind, their shapes glimpsed in spray. Yet stories of miracles are told too, boats saved by saintly hand, storms stilled by prayer, catches doubled after Mass. Faith and fear live side by side, like sea and land. Evenings are times of fellowship. Fires are lit, smoke rising from every chimney, gulls settling upon rooftops. Families gather in cottages, sharing bread, ale, fish roasted upon spits. Neighbors visit, songs rise, fiddles scrape. Stories of the sea are told anew. Children fall asleep to the sound of waves mingling with lullabies. Outside, nets sway upon poles. Boats creak softly in their moorings, and stars wheel bright above the endless water. To live in a coastal village is to live in balance. The sea gives and takes, blesses and curses, nourishes and destroys. Its voice never falls silent, and its power never rests. Yet the people endure, tied to it by hunger, by trade, by habit, by love. They do not tame the sea, they live with it, as with a restless neighbor. Their cottages lean into wind, their nets stretch across waves, their prayers rise with gulls. The coastal village is the edge of land, the beginning of sea, the place where two worlds meet and weave life together. The sea is more than a road and more than a harvest of fish. For the medieval coast, it is a treasury of other gifts. White salt gleaming in shallow pans, whales rising like dark islands, shells and seaweed feeding humble trades. Long before distant voyages brought pepper or silk, these nearer riches shaped daily life and bound small villages into great networks of commerce. The white gold of salt. Salt is life. Without it, food rots. Fish caught at dawn would be inedible by dusk. Salted meat feeds armies, monasteries, and inland towns through winter. Bread tastes flat without it. Butter spoils quickly. So along many coasts, whole landscapes turn into saltworks. In Brittany, in Portugal, on England's south coast, and across the Mediterranean, you would see miles of salt pans, shallow man-made pools cut into mud or stone, linked by small channels. At high tide, sea water is let in, then the pools are closed and left under sun and wind. Slowly the water shrinks, turning pale, then brine thick, then crystalline white. Men and women wade barefoot, wooden rakes in hand, scraping delicate crusts of salt into piles that gleam like snow under summer sun. Children help with baskets. Older folk mend the low dikes that hold precious water in. The smell is sharp and clean, the air dry with salt dust. It is back-breaking work, stooping, raking, hauling under heat. But the product is wealth. Carts carry great sacks inland. Merchants arrive to bargain. Kings tax it heavily, knowing its worth. Smugglers try to slip barrels past collectors. Towns rise rich beside salt marshes. Whole guilds form to control harvest and sale. In some places, salt is currency itself, traded weight for weight against goods. Salt also creates preserving power for seafarers. Fishermen salt their catch on deck. Merchants ship barrels of salted herring or cod across Europe. Inland monasteries depend on saltfish to feed during Lent. Without this quiet industry, the medieval diet would be shorter and hungrier. The giants of the North Sea. Further north, where seas grow cold and dark, another wealth stirs Wales. Medieval whaling is rough and perilous, but it fills ports with oil for lamps, bone for crafts, and meat for hungry winters. In the Bay of Biscay, Basque sailors lead the trade. They launch long open boats, narrow and swift, rowed by crews of 10 or 12. In bow stands the harpooner, rope coiled at his feet, eye sharp for spout or back. When whale breaches Black Mountain rising with spray and thunder, boat gives chase. Oars flash, men grunt, and the harpoon flies, burying deep. At once the whale dives, rope screaming out, smoking with friction. The crew rides a wild, terrifying pull as beast sounds deep. Sometimes rope snaps, sometimes boat overturns, sometimes men vanish. But often, slowly, the wounded whale surfaces again, blood staining sea red. More spears follow, until at last it dies, massive body floating still. Then comes toil towing carcass to shore, cutting blubber with long knives, rendering fat in great pots to make oil. The smell is heavy and acrid, clinging to skin and clothes. Baleen long, flexible plates from mouth is prized for sieves, corsets, and bows. Bones become tools, ornaments, even building material. Meat, though strong and dark, feeds villages or is salted for later. Nothing is wasted. Killing a whale is too dangerous to squander. Basque whalers push farther each century. To Ireland, to Iceland, even to Greenland, their skills unmatched. Other northern coasts follow more humbly, taking smaller whales or stranded giants washed ashore. Children play upon vast ribs left bleaching in sun. Churches carve whalebone into screens and altars. Whales are fearsome but sacred in way, a gift of sea taken with risk and reverence. Seaweed, shells, and small trades. Not every sea harvest is mighty. Along rocky shores, women and children gather seaweed, cutting long brown ribbons of kelp to dry upon stones. Burned later, it yields soda ash for soap and glass making. In some places, it fertilizes fields, turning poor soil rich. Shellfish, mussels, oysters, cockles are pried from rocks at low tide, filling baskets for market. Pearls hide in some oysters. A lucky diver may find one worth a year's wage. Shells themselves feed crafts, ground into lime, carved into buttons, polished for rosaries. In the Mediterranean, divers risk breath and darkness for sponges and coral, prized in distant courts. Children comb beaches for driftwood and amber. Each humble find may fetch coin. Thus, even those without boats taste the sea's wealth. Danger and endurance. Yet none of these labors is safe. Salt workers drown when dikes fail or tides rush unexpected. Whalers vanish in sudden squalls, dragged by rope or smashed by tail. Seaweed gatherers slip on rocks, swept out by waves. Cold cripples fingers, storms tear harvest to ruin. Families mourn quietly, but return next season, for sea offers no other mercy but persistence. Markets reflect this quiet heroism. In a single port one might see salt sacks stacked like white hills, whale oil in barrels black and greasy, baleen hung to dry, piles of dried kelp, baskets of shellfish, heaps of coral and sponges, children selling small polished shells to pilgrims. The smell is mixed brine, oil, smoke, rot, and wealth. Buyers come from inland, their carts creaking home heavy with goods that smell of tide, the greater web. These modest trades weave into larger networks of exchange. Salt from Brittany preserves cod caught in Iceland and eaten in Prague. Whale oil from Basque hunts lights lamps in Paris cathedrals. Coral from Mediterranean divers decorates reliquaries in northern abbeys. Soap made with kelp ash cleans hands of Venetian merchants. Glass strengthened by sea minerals holds wine from Bordeaux. Even peasants on far hills use sea goods daily without knowing the lives spent to gather them. Thus the seas are the gifts, though less sung than spices or gold, quietly sustain medieval Europe. They are the small foundation stones beneath great trade. The salted fish feeding Lent, the oil lighting manuscripts, the balian stiffening rich garments, the seaweed greening poor fields. Behind every grand voyage stands an army of humble gatherers, rakers, and hunters, risking tide for survival. To walk a medieval coast is to see this clearly. Salt pans glitter like mirrors, smoke from whale rendering stains sky, kelp dries in tangled heaps, children pry mussels from rocks. It is a landscape shaped as much by hands as by waves, where every tide brings work, danger, and hope. And when night falls, these same folk light lamps fueled by whale, season supper with salt they raked, men nets beside piles of drying kelp. They know the sea intimately, as giver, taker, and endless taskmaster. Their labor may seem small, but it keeps ships sailing, armies fed, cities lit. In their quiet toil lies the true heartbeat of the medieval sea. Before any sail can billow, before any mast can creak, before any keel can cut the waves, there are the shipwrights. Their work begins not at sea but in the forest, where oak and pine grow tall and steady. For ships are not born of water, but of wood, and wood must first be chosen, cut, seasoned, and shaped by hands that know grain and curve, as well as any sailor knows tide and wind. The shipwright walks among trees with an eye sharper than an archer's. He sees not merely a trunk, but the line of a future keel, the sweep of a rib, the bend of a mast. He knows which trees grew straight in steady soil, which bent in wind, which hold strength, which will split. He listens to wood when his axe strikes, hearing whether the heart is sound or hollow. The forest is his first workshop. the echo of axes his first song. Once felled, trees are dragged by oxes to rivers or roads, their bark stripped, their sapwood hewn away. Great beams lie stacked, curing in wind and sun, until they are ready to be shaped. Shipyards rise by water's edge, where timbers can be hauled easily to launching. The air smells of pitch and sawdust, of tar boiling in pots, of iron nails hammered bright and ringing. Hammers echo, saws rasp, mallets thud upon wedges. The noise is constant, a rhythm of creation as steady as waves upon shingle. The keel is laid first, a spine of oak long and strong. Upon it ribs are set, curved timbers steamed and bent, forming the skeleton of the ship. Planks follow, fitted tight, nailed with iron, their seams caulked with moss and pitch. Each strike of mallet, each swing of axe, is both labor and prayer. Shipwrights know lives depend on their craft. A loose seam may mean drowning, a weak plank may break under storm. Thus they work with care, with sweat, with reverence. The tools are simple yet mighty. Adzes for shaping beams, augers for boring holes, draw knives for smoothing, mallets and wedges for splitting. Blacksmiths forge nails and spikes by hundreds, their sparks flying into night. Ropes are twisted from hemp, tarred until they gleam black. Pitch is heated in great pots, brushed hot into seams, its smell pungent, clinging to skin and clothes. Shipwrights are as much coated in tar as in sweat, their beards stiff with it, their hands blackened. As hulls rise, children creep near to watch, their eyes wide as planks curve into walls higher than houses. Women bring food, men carry tools, dogs bark at strange new shapes looming beside water. Slowly a ship takes form, prow sharp and proud, sides swelling like ribs of beast, stern rising steady. The air hums with excitement, for each new ship promises more fish, more trade, more journeys, more tales. The village feels larger simply for its presence. When the hull is done, masts are raised, tall poles of pine, hauled by ropes, guided by cries set deep into sockets. Sails are cut from wool or flax, heavy and strong, stitched by women with steady hands. Some are left plain, others dyed bright, some bearing painted crosses or saints' emblems, prayers writ large across canvas. Ropes are threaded, pulleys fixed, rudders hung. The skeleton becomes body, the body becomes vessel. Before launching, there is always a blessing. Priests sprinkle holy water across deck, chanting litanies, calling on Nicholas, protector of sailors, and Mary, star of the sea. A small coin may be hammered into mast, a charm buried beneath keel, a sprig of green fastened to prow. No ship leaves yard without prayer, for all know that man's skill could carry it only so far. The sea must be persuaded, or at least placated. The launching is a day of festival. Villagers gather, children perched on shoulders, dogs barking, fiddles playing. The ship rests upon greased timbers, ropes taut to hold it. At signal, wedges are struck, ropes cut, and the hull begins to move. Slowly at first, then with sudden swiftness, it slides down into water. Cheers erupt as it splashes, waves rising, gulls startled into air. For a moment the ship wobbles, uncertain, then steadies, rocking upon tide. It is born. Shipwrights stand aside, tired yet proud, their arms smeared with tar, their eyes shining. They know the ship will soon leave them, carrying strangers across waters they themselves may never sail. But their craft sails with it, their axe strokes, their fitted seams, their hammered nails. Every creak of plank is their voice, every roll of wave against hull is their labor remembered. They return to yard to begin again, for ships are always needed, and the sea always hungers. Thus the shipwright's work is more than craft. It is a dialogue with sea itself. Each ship is a bargain, wood against wave, tar against tide, prayer against peril. Some ships will return, weathered but whole. Some will vanish beneath storm, their timbers drifting back to shore. Yet the shipwright builds again, for to stop would be to starve. His hands shape not only vessels, but the very fate of villages, towns, kingdoms. Without him the sea would remain barrier. Through him it becomes road. If the fishing boats and river barges are lifelines for the shore, then the great merchant ships are its beating heart. The Cog, and later the Carrack, are not humble craft but giants of timber, the ocean's caravans carrying wealth across distances no cart nor pack-horse could dream to span. Where a coracle might bring home supper, a cog could bring home fortunes. Their sight upon the horizon stirred awe, for they were not only vessels but symbols of trade, of ambition, of a world wider than any village lane. The cog is squat but mighty, broad of beam, its single mast rising tall, its square sail billowing like a banner. Its sides tower above the waves, high-sided to keep out water and to resist boarding in times of war. Its stern is round, its prow proud, and it rides the waves less like a dancer than a fortress set afloat. On deck, barrels and crates stack high, lashed with ropes, smelling of spice, salt fish, wool, and wine. Below, in the dark belly, more cargo rests, filling every space with creak and thud. The Carrack come later, taller still, with multiple masts and swelling sails, able to bear yet more goods across yet greater distances. Where the Cog crossed the North and Baltic seas, the Carrack dares Atlantic and Mediterranean both, reaching toward distant islands, distant ports, places where silks and spices, gold and ivory might be found. It is a moving city, its decks crowded with sailors, its timbers groaning with weight. To see a carrack in harbour is to feel the world has grown larger, for it carries not only goods but news, ideas, and marvels. Life aboard these ships is harsh, though from land they seem noble. The decks are cramped, the air thick with tar, sweat, and salt. Rats scuttle, ropes creak, gulls scream overhead. Sailors sleep where they an, some in hammocks, some on planks, swayed by the sea's constant motion. Meals are coarse, hard bread, dried fish, salted meat, ale gone sour. Yet spirits remain high, for each voyage is promise of gain, of adventure, of stories to be told in taverns for years to come. The cargo carried shapes lives far beyond the sea, wool from English sheep, woven into cloth, sails to Flanders where looms turn it fine, spices from the east, pepper, cinnamon, saffron sail north to seasoned stews otherwise plain, wine from France, salt from Brittany, timber from the Baltic, grain from the Black Sea, all flow upon these ships. Each crate unloaded at market, is it just goods, but the weaving of worlds together, distant lands touching through wood and water. The crew are a rough brotherhood, hardened by wind and wave. Sailors climb rigging barefoot, their hands gripping rope worn rough, their bodies swaying with mast. Orders are shouted, sails unfurled, ropes hauled, anchors dropped with thunder. They sing as they work, deep chants to keep rhythm, lighter songs when labor eases. Each man knows his place. The helmsman guiding rudder, the lookout squinting into horizon, the cook stirring pot in galley, the boy carrying messages and scrubbing decks. Discipline is strict, for mistakes may mean death, yet fellowship runs deep, for each depends on the other. In harbors, cogs and carracks tower above smaller craft, their sails furled, their hulls looming. Dockside cranes groan as goods are hoisted, ropes creak, voices rise in a dozen tongues. Merchants in fine robes haggle, scribes note tallies, guards watch for thieves. Tavern doors swing wide to welcome sailors with ale and song, coins clinking, dice rattling, fights breaking as easily as laughter. The town grows richer, its streets busier, its markets livelier, each time a great ship anchors in bay. Yet the sea is never safe, no matter how stout the ship. Storms shatter sails, snap masts, tear planks as if they were kindling. Lightning strikes, waves crash higher than decks, water floods, men cling to ropes, praying their vessel holds. Pirates haunt coasts and straits, swift galleys chasing, grappling hooks flying, swords flashing. Even in calm, dangers lurk, shoals unseen, reefs sharp, currents that drag ships off course. A voyage begun in hope may end in silence, the sea swallowing ship and crew without leaving even driftwood behind. For this reason, every voyage begins with ritual. Priests bless decks, captains sprinkle holy water, coins are dropped into sea as offerings. Images of saints are painted upon prows, candles lit in chapels before departure, oaths spoken that if safe return is granted, gifts will be given in thanks. The sea cannot be commanded, but it can be honored, and men feel safer when faith sails with them. Still, the sight of a cog or carrack upon the horizon stirs hearts. Villagers run to shore to watch. Children point, dogs bark. The sails gleam white in sun, then tan with use, patched and mended. Flags whip in wind, crests of towns or guilds or lords flying proud. For some, it means return of loved ones, for others, arrival of goods. For all, it is sign that their world is its small but wide, not bounded only by fields and woods, but stretching across endless sea. These ships, heavy and slow, were the veins of medieval trade, carrying not only wealth, but also memory. Each plank bent by shipwright, each rope twisted by rope maker, each sail stitched by women's hands, together they made the vessels that bound kingdoms, that linked villages to ports, that turned local harvests into shared abundance. To stand upon deck of a cog, to see horizon unbroken, to hear timbers groan and waves slap, was to know the world was wider than any one life. Step aboard a cog or carrack, and you step into a world apart. Not quite land, not quite sea, but something between. Life aboard a medieval ship is not a gentle drift upon the waves, but a pattern of hard labor, close company, constant watch, and deep superstition. From the first creak of timbers at dawn to the last whispered prayers at night, the sailor's life is a rhythm bound by ropes, ruled by tides, and measured in leagues. The day begins with the watch. A ship must never sleep, for the sea is never still. While some rest, others stand guard, eyes sharp upon horizon, ears pricked for shift of wind or slap of sail. The lookout at mast scans water for sails, shoals, storms. Below, the helmsman keeps his hands steady upon the tiller, guiding course by star or shore. Sailors rouse from hammocks or from planks laid bare, rubbing eyes, stretching limbs stiff from damp. The air is heavy with tar, salt, sweat, the decks slick with spray, the gulls already circling, greedy for scraps. Meals are taken when they can be, not when hunger dictates. The food is plain, hardtack, so tough it must be soaked in ale, dried fish tough as leather, salted beef cut from barrels, peas and beans boiled to paste. Fresh water is stored in casks, but soon it grows brackish, so ale is drunk more often, sour but safer. When luck holds, a fisherman among the crew casts a line, and fresh catch brings brief joy. Sometimes seabirds are caught, their meat stringing, their taste sharp yet welcome. Spices, when afforded, hide rot, but most meals are swallowed more for need than pleasure. The chores of ship life never end. Sails must be hoisted, furled, patched. Ropes must be coiled, tarred, mended. Decks must be scrubbed of salt, waste, and blood from butchered animals carried for meat. Barrels must be shifted, cargo checked, bilge water pumped out. Rats are hunted, though never fully driven away. Weapons are oiled, for pirates may strike. Fire is feared above all. Cooking is done in a small iron-bound hearth, carefully tended, its flames watched as closely as any storm cloud. Work is ordered by watch system. Half the crew labors while the other half rests, then they change. Bells mark hours, their toll carrying across waves. The rhythm becomes second nature. Haul rope, eat, scrub, sleep. Haul rope, mend sail, bail water, sleep. Days blur together until men forget dates, remembering only winds and waves. Yet within this monotony, fellowship grows. Songs are sung to keep rhythm when hauling sails, deep chants, simple and steady, that match pull of rope to beat of voice. The sleeping quarters are cramped. Hammocks swing when the ship rolls, cradling sailors in uneasy rest. Others lie upon deck beneath stars, cloaks drawn tight, their dreams rocked by sea. Privacy is none, laughter, snores, prayers, and curses mingle. Clothes are never dry, skin never clean, lice and flea common. Yet men endure, for they are bound by need, by pay, by pride, and by a strange love for the endless horizon. Amid labor there is superstition. Words are avoided, whistling said to call storms, certain animals named only in whispers. Charms hang from masts, relics tucked in pockets. Crosses are carved into wood, saints' images painted on sails. Before dangerous waters, prayers rise together, voices rough yet sincere. Omens are read in flight of birds, in color of dawn, in shapes of clouds. Even the hardest sailor grows solemn when sea grows strange, for all know its power is greater than theirs. There are moments of respite, when seas are calm and sails set. Sailors gather in corners, mending clothes, carving wood, telling tales. Dice rattle, songs are sung, laughter rises. Stories are shared of ports far and wide, of taverns and women, of storms survived and friends lost. Some carve charms from driftwood, some mend shoes, some simply lie staring at sky. Even here, humanity persists. Jokes, quarrels, friendships, rivalries. Bonds forged upon ship are stronger than most, for survival depends upon them. Yet discipline is sharp. The captain's word is law, his orders enforced with rope's end or worse. A man who disobeys risks more than punishment. He risks the lives of all. Mutiny is whispered in stories, but rare in truth, for sailors know their survival lies in order. Still quarrels flare, knives are drawn, blood spills. Such moments are hushed swiftly, lest they fester, for on sea there is no escape. Enemies must labor side by side, or all will perish. The elements are constant company. Sun burns skin, salt cracks lips, Wind whips hair into ropes. Rain soaks clothing, cold seeps into bone. Storms strike with fury, waves higher than masts, lightning flashing, sails torn like cloth. Men cling to ropes, praying aloud, water flooding deck. Some are swept overboard, vanishing in instant. When calm returns, silence follows, broken only by sobs of those left. Yet the ship sails on, and duties resume, for grief cannot delay tide. Faith is anchor. On Sundays, when weather allows, prayers are said, hymns sung, a priest, if aboard, lifting hands against horizon. If no priest, then captain or elder leads, psalms chanted, candles lit in small lantern. The sea listens, indifferent, yet men feel steadied, hearts lifted. In storms, prayers turn desperate, in calm they turn grateful. Sailors make promises, candles in shrines, coins to pour, offerings at chapels, if only safe return is granted. When land is sighted at last, green hills, white cliffs, towers of churches, cheers rise. Hearts swell, eyes fill. The long days of labor, hunger, storm, and silence find reward in sight of home or port. Sails are furled, anchors dropped, ropes cast ashore. Sailors stagger to land, legs unsteady, hearts racing. They head for taverns, for markets, for chapels, for lovers, yet soon enough they return to ship, for sea has become part of them. Life on land feels strange. Only upon deck, with horizon spread wide, do we feel whole. So the sailor's life is hardship and fellowship, fear and laughter, monotony and marvel. It is hunger endured, danger faced, prayers whispered, songs sung. It is a life small in comfort but vast in horizon. For those who sail, the world isn't bounded by fields and walls, but by waters endless, skies unbroken, and stars guiding them through night. Where the long trade road finally meets the sea, the town gathers itself into a busy crescent around the harbor. Cobbled streets run down to the water, flanked by warehouses, taverns, and the tall masts of ships at anchor. Salt and tar scent the air. Seagulls wheel and cry, and the steady slap of waves against pilings keeps time for all who work along the quay. Here road and sea join hands, sending merchants, sailors, and wanderers out into the wide world or bringing them safely home. At first light, the quay is almost quiet. Fog drapes the masts and muffles the creak of ropes. A few figures move among shadowed barrels and coiled lines, watchmen making rounds, an early fisherman checking nets, a boy sweeping the boards clear of night's debris. Lanterns swing faintly, their light soft on damp wood. The tide is low, revealing green-streaked stone steps leading to the water. One of the first to arrive is Dame Cecile, keeper of the harbor records. She is a brisk, capable woman with gray hair bound in a scarf. A ledger is tucked under her arm and keys jangle at her belt. She unlocks the counting house, lights a lamp, and sets out quills and sand. By noon she will have tallied cargoes of wool, salt, and wine, but for now she sips warm ale and watches the mist. Soon the harbour begins to stir. Carters arrive with horses steaming in the cool air, wagons laden with goods, bales of cloth, sacks of grain, casks of beer. They rumble to the edge of the quay, where dockmen in rough tunics stand ready. From the sea the first ships glide in, oars dipping, sails slack as the tide carries them home. Their crews shout to one another in voices hoarse from night watch. Seagulls swoop low, crying for scraps. The first ship to berth this morning is a coastal trader, low and broad, carrying barrels of salt fish and smoked eels. Dockmen catch its lines and haul it snug against the timbers. Planks are thrown down, boots thump. A tall man with sea-brown skin jumps ashore to speak with Cecile about fees and cargo tallies. Her quill scratches, and coins clink into the harbour chest. Another vessel follows a merchant cog from far up river, heavy with wool and spices. Its crew works silently, weary, but pleased to see home again. As bales are unloaded, the smells of pepper and cinnamon mingle with the salt air. Carters hurry to claim loads bound for inland fares. One stops to warm hands at a brazier where a dockside cook sells hot broth. By mid-morning, the Quay is alive. Sailors coil ropes and sing low work songs. Merchants argue prices. Children dart underfoot chasing gulls. A blacksmith's hammer rings from a nearby shed where anchors are mended and chain repaired. A cooper rolls empty barrels toward a waiting ship. Smoke from tavern chimneys curls upward, promising fried fish and mugs of ale for those who've labored since dawn. Amid the bustle, small human moments play out. A young sailor leaps ashore and hugs his waiting mother. A merchant greets an old friend just arrived from distant ports. Their laughter rings above the din. A priest blesses a vessel about to sail, sprinkling salt water and murmuring prayers for fair winds. Travelers disembark with stiff legs, grateful to feel solid ground and eager for the road beyond. At the far end of the quay stands a tavern called the Gull's Rest. Its door is already open, and a stout woman with red cheeks ladles out early bowls of fish stew. Sailors crowd in for breakfast. Carters lean on the bar for a quick mug. The air inside is warm and smoky, full of stories. Over the cracker of the hearth come voices telling of storms, pirates, lucky bargains, and homecomings sweet after long months away. Along the water edge, small workshops thrive. Net menders sit on low stools, fingers flashing as they repair torn mesh. A sailmaker's shed smells of canvas and wax. Inside, long bolts of cloth are stretched and stitched with heavy needles. Rope makers twist and coil hemp into lines strong enough to hold a ship steady against any gale. Each craft hums with quiet skill, unnoticed but vital. Midday brings the tide turning and new ships coming in. One is a river barge heavy with grain, another a sleek vessel from across the narrow sea, its hull dark with pitch and its crew foreign tongue. They unload bolts of fine cloth and casks of olive oil, and curious townsfolk gather to watch. Children marvel at the sailors' bright sashes and earrings. Merchants appraise goods with shrewd eyes. Cecile moves among them all, recording cargo and coin. She speaks with dock captains, settles disputes, and sends messages to the Guildhall when a valuable shipment arrives. Her calm presence keeps order even when tempers rise over tariffs or delayed unloading. Everyone knows that without her ledgers the harbor would dissolve into chaos. In the afternoon, repairs begin in earnest. A ship newly docked hauls down a torn sail. Men climb the rigging like spiders to patch it. Another crew hammers planks into place where the hull has sprung a leak. The smell of tar thickens, warm and sharp. A boy apprentices to the shipwright, fetches nails, and listens wide-eyed to tales of far voyages. Not all is work. Musicians sometimes wander down, fiddles and pipes, playing for coins tossed by sailors glad to be ashore. Lovers stroll arm in arm, watching gulls dive. A painter sets up an easel to capture the busy scene. Masts against sky, water shining like pewter. Children toss pebbles to startle fish below the pilings and squeal at the splashes. Toward evening the light turns golden, gilding ropes and waves alike. Ships ready to sail cast off lines and drift toward open water, sails swelling as the wind rises. Crews call farewells to those on shore. Merchants watch their goods vanish into distance, hoping for profit on the far side. The road has ended here for some, but for others it begins again on the sea's path. The taverns grow lively as work ends. Sailors spend earned coin on hot food and drink, telling tales louder now. Carters sing rough songs before bedding down in their wagons. Merchants gather in corners to strike quiet bargains for tomorrow's loads. Laughter and clinking mugs mix with the sound of gulls settling for night. As dusk falls, the quay empties slowly. Dockmen coil the last ropes. Workshops shutter their doors. The tide laps softly against stones darkened with centuries of trade. Cecile closes the counting house, ledgers balanced, and walks home through streets smelling of tar, smoke, and distant cooking. Behind her, lanterns bloom along the quay, their light dancing on water. Night deepens. Only a few figures move now. A watchman with a lantern, a fisherman preparing to set out early, a solitary sailor staring seaward. The harbor itself seems to sigh after a long day. Ropes creak, water slaps. A gull cries once before sleep. Ships at anchor rock gently, their rigging whispering to the wind. The road that brought so many here lies silent under the stars, but its work is done. Goods have changed hands, letters have arrived, Travelers have found passage. Tomorrow more wheels and boots will come clattering down, more sails will rise. Tonight the harbor rests, a dark mirror of sky and a promise of journeys yet to come. Where land surrenders to the restless sea, a ribbon of cottages crouches behind a shingle beach. Nets hang like sleeping ghosts from poles, tar-dark boats rest on pulled-up skids, and the salty air is alive with gull cries. This is the fishing village, small, weather-beaten, yet rich in rhythm and quiet resilience. For centuries, such places dotted the medieval coasts, feeding inland towns and keeping families alive through skill and courage. Before dawn, the settlement stirs. In the dark, only the glow of a few hearths marks life. Fishermen rise silently, pulling on wool and leather stiff with salt. Wives wake too, tending fire and setting bowls of coarse bread and ale or thin porridge. Children sometimes sleep on, but older ones may help fetching water, mending a torn sail by candle. The whole village knows the sea waits for no man. Outside, sand crunches under boots. Boats lie tilted on their keels, some little more than stout rowboats, others small sailing cogs or clinker-built craft with single square sail. Oars and poles stacked ready, lanterns swing as crews check lines and nets. These nets are heavy, patched with care, hemp cords tarred dark, weights of stone or lead tied along bottom, floats of cork at top. Hooks and lines, too, are prepared for deeper water. Launching is a practiced dance. Men push hulls down greased skids or roll on logs to water's edge. They judge tide and wind, murmuring quick prayers to God, to St. Nicholas, sometimes to old sea spirits whose names linger though church frowns. Wives or mothers stand watching, shawls tight, until boats clear shallows. Dawn paints pale silver on waves, gulls wheel and scream. Out at sea the work begins. Rowers bend to oars until sail can catch breeze. Nets go overboard with careful rhythm. Weighted to sink, floats to mark top. Lines baited with fish or shell. Men scan water for signs, gull flocks diving, fish breaking surface, dark shadows moving below. Salt spray stings faces, hands toughen against rope's bite. Conversation is sparse, broken by sea and wind. The sea is teacher and threat. Gentle days bring easy haul and laughter. Rough ones demand grit and prayer. Sudden squalls sweep from horizon, sails reefed in haste, waves crash over gunwales. Many villages have tales of boats lost, fathers and sons taken in one storm. Small chapels on cliffs hold ex-votos, tiny carved ships hung in thanks for survival. By midday or later, if catch is good, boats turn for shore heavy with silver shimmer, herring, mackerel, cod, sometimes eels or shellfish. Returning is joy and strain. Arms ache, sails strain, yet sight of cottage roofs lifts every heart. On beach, families gather to help pull boats up with ropes and rollers, cheering each safe arrival. The shore becomes busy workshop, fish gutted, cleaned and sorted on rough tables, some salted on spot, thick layers of coarse crystals packed in barrels, others hung to dry on racks or smoked in low sheds black with years of curing. Wives, daughters, and older children work swiftly, knives flashing. Gulls scream overhead for scraps. Cats prowl bold. Preserving catch is lifeline. Fresh fish sold same day if town nearby, most salted or dried for winter, or trade inland. Smokehouses glow with slow fires of oak or beech. Smell drifts through village sharp, comforting, promising food when seas run empty. Barrels rolled to storehouses. Merchants sometimes arrive with carts to buy in bulk. Village life spins around these tides. Men gone at sea, women mend nets, tend gardens, milk goats, fetch water, raise children. Children help from early age, gathering bait, scraping boats, turning fish on drying racks. Winter storms keep boats ashore, so men carve repairs, weave new lines, or do small woodwork. During lean months, everyone depends on summer's preserved fish and neighbors' kindness. Faith keeps fear at bay. Every boat may carry a small cross or painted saint on prow. Before season begins, priest blesses fleet. Families light candles for safe return. Feast of local patron saint, often a great day. Boats garlanded, procession to chapel, sea sprinkled with holy water. Yet alongside church linger older charms, shells tied to nets, whispered rhymes to calm wind. The sea shapes temper. Fisherfolk are practical, brave, yet humble before forces beyond them. They know sky's moods high, mare's tail clouds mean wind, red sunrise warns of storm, gull cries foretell change. Children learn tide tables not from charts, but from watching moon and water edge. Each family holds lore of hidden shoals, safe coves, and when to risk deeper water for bigger catch. Evening draws quiet beauty. Boats hauled high, sails drying, smoke from curing sheds drifts low. Women finish scraping skins, salt stiff on hands. Children chase each other among nets while older siblings coil ropes. Men mend torn mesh by fading light, pipe smoke curling. Supper smells of fish stew, bread, and simple ale. On still nights, after work, songs rise. Low chants of sea shanties or psalms echo across shingle. Stories told of daring voyages, great catches, sea monsters seen or storms survived. Stars glitter on dark water, and lanterns bob like earthbound constellations. It is a hard life, but bound by deep camaraderie. Trade links even the remote place. Merchants come for barrels of herring or dried cod. Peddlers bring salt, rope, cloth in exchange. Inland villages depend on this steady flow, for fish is cheap fasting food for peasants and monks alike. Some fishermen join larger fleets for rich shoals farther off, bringing coin and tails back home. Seasons beat strong here. Spring promises first safe voyages, new nets, and fresh hope. Summer busy and bright, boats almost daily at sea, smokehouses running hot. Autumn a rush to fill barrels before storms. Winter brings repair, hunger, and storytelling by fire. Each year tests but teaches resilience. So picture the fishing village, modest homes leaning to wind, nets drying, smoke curling, children laughing while gulls cry overhead. Hard but steady, dangerous but full of quiet pride, it kept countless medieval families fed and tied, distant coasts to inland markets. In the first grey light of morning, when mist still curls across the low meadows, a rumble of hooves and wheels wakes the village. Dogs bark, a sleepy cockerel crows again. Children tumble from doorways to watch. Along the main road comes a merchant caravan, a train of wagons and pack animals, bells jingling faintly, voices murmuring in many tongues. In a world without rails or paved highways, this is how goods move. Slow, noisy, vulnerable, and vital. The caravan begins far away. A merchant, perhaps from a thriving town on the coast or a bustling inland market, has planned for weeks. He chooses his route, perhaps south toward fairs and champagne, east to German cities, west toward a busy port. Roads are uncertain. Some are little more than rutted tracks. Some cross forest and heath. Others pass under watch of toll-taking lords. He hires guards and carters, buys provisions, and loads wagons with wares, bales of cloth, sacks of spice, barrels of wine or salt, iron tools, wax and leather. Departure is a small spectacle. Horses or oxes are harnessed, bells tied at their collars to warn and cheer. Drivers check wheels and grease axles, merchants count packs and lock chests. Guards strap on mail shirts or padded jacks, test swords or crossbows. Wives and children gather to wave goodbye. Then, with a groan of wood and cheer of voices, the caravan creaks out the city gate and into open country. Travel is slow, perhaps 15 to 20 miles on good day, less on bad. Roads wind through farmland where peasants pause to watch, fields dotted with geese and grazing sheep. Soon they may plunge into forest, cool and green but dangerous. Bandits lurk, fallen trees block path. Guards ride at flanks, eyes sharp. Sometimes the caravan joins others for safety, swelling to long file of carts and beasts. The sound is constant. Hooves, wheel squeal, harness jingling, teamsters shouting "Who" or "Gee" to steer. Each evening they seek safe halt, a walled town if lucky, a monastery that keeps guest hall, or simply an open space where wagons the circle and fires be lit. At inns along major roads, stables and large courtyards cater to such traffic. Merchants pay to stable animals, cook stew over shared hearth, and sleep on straw pallets. Stories fly, news of politics, rumors of war, prices in distant markets. Guards dice in corners, carters sing. Supplies are vital. Each wagon carries barrels of water or wine, sacks of oats for beasts, dried meat, bread, onions, hard cheese. Blacksmith tools ride along, spare shoes, nails, grease. Accidents happen daily. A wheel breaks, an axle splits, a horse goes lame. Then the caravan halts, men gather, repairs are made under watchful eyes. Time lost can mean danger if night falls in lonely place. Tolls punctuate the road. Every petty lord with bridge or hilltop tower demands fee. Sometimes it is fair coin, sometimes extortion. Wise merchants travel with letters of passage, stamped with seals of princes or powerful guilds. Even so, bribes and bargaining are common. Guards show strength, but know when to yield. Better pay a silver than fight a small war. The cargo shapes the caravan's mood. Cloth merchants guard bales under tops, fearing rain and moths. Spice dealers sniff air for damp. Wine merchants wedge barrels tight, and prey wheels hold on rough hills. Salt trains are dusty but steady. Ironmongers clang and rattle with tools and nails. Sometimes exotic wares ride amber from Baltic, silks from Italy, pepper from the Levant. Curious villagers line roads to glimpse such wonders. Religious life accompanies travel. Each morning some cross themselves before setting out. Many wear amulets or badges from past pilgrimages. When passing shrines or roadside crosses, drivers may pause, mutter prayer, or leave coin for protection. A traveling priest or monk may ride with caravan, say mass when safe stop is found. In dangerous stretches, prayer mixes with sword at the ready. Weather rules all. Sunshine and firm ground mine easy progress. Rain turns track to sucking mud. Wagons bog to axles, men and beasts strain, shouting and cursing. In winter, snow could trap caravan for days. Frozen rivers are risky crossings. Summer heat exhausts animals. Water runs short. Merchants study skies, consult local wisdom, and sometimes wait in town for better days. Markets and fairs are bright reward. Great annual fairs in Champagne, Bruges, Frankfurt, or Beaucaire fill with tents and stalls. Caravans arrive dusty but triumphant. Goods are unloaded, measured, displayed. Buyers throng, nobles seeking silks, guilds ordering wool, peasants buying salt or cheap cloth. Deals are struck with handshakes and sealed with wax. Coins clink, scribes record, and merchants taste the sweet relief of profit. Fairs are also social whirl. Jugglers, minstrels, cooks, and thieves alike gather. News from far lands spreads, alliances form, marriages are arranged. Merchants who have seen one another only by letter now share wine and stories. Guards spend earnings in revel. Apprentices look wide-eyed at wares from worlds beyond imagining. Yet after fare comes return, wagons reload with new goods for home, perhaps Flemish cloth heading south, French wine to the east, Baltic furs to Italy. The road calls again with its ruts and tolls, its dangers and quiet beauties. Merchants tally coin, pay guards, and set out, knowing each mile is risk but also opportunity. Some caravans never return. Bandits or war may scatter them, plague a strike and rout. Others grow legendary, a bold crossing of Alpine pass in storm, a rescue of stranded pilgrims, a caravan that reached port just before blockade and sold goods for fortune. Tales of such journeys spread in taverns, inspiring young apprentices to dream of road life. For the medieval world, these caravans are lifelines. They bring salt to inland tables, cloth to distant towns, tools and iron to villages, wine to monasteries. They carry letters, news, ideas. They knit a patchwork Europe into something faintly connected. Without them, towns would wither and castles stand empty of fine things. Evening on the road has its own magic. Fires flicker in ring of wagons, pots simmer with onion and meat, guards keep watch while merchants talk softly. Stars wheel overhead, a dog barks in distance, an owl hoots. Far from home, yet bound by shared risk and enterprise, the caravan feels like small moving village. Tomorrow they will rise and creak forward again toward markets and unknown miles. So when you think of medieval commerce, picture not only tall ships and city fairs, but these slow, determined trains of carts and pack horses. Picture merchants counting coins by firelight, guards scanning dark woods, and drivers coaxing weary oxes through mud. The merchant caravan is trade made flesh, fragile, stubborn, and the beating heart of connection in a world without easy roads.